So when we are talking of risk is a potential. There's a potential for loss of a data, theft, or damages, or access to sensitive data, or IT system, information system, IT infrastructure due to threats and vulnerability. We are talking of potential probability that a particular unauthorized access, modification, damages to a what to an information system, IT infrastructure, data, and so forth. That is what we call what risk. Risk can cause that. Taking such risk, we are taking this risk, but this kind of what because of the vulnerability or the threat that leverage to that kind of IT system, we are taking this risk, but this kind of things can happen to it. Damages can happen to it. So we are taking this risk. So let's talk about these are the objectives which are going to explain the purpose and applicability, and then identify the basic of risk management, and then we are going to explain the process of risk management one after the other. So introduction to what to management and evaluation of risk are both major components. They work hand in hand together for what information security management. We follow the procedure of standard documentation such as IOS framework, NIST, International Standard Organization, NIST, National Institute for Standard and Technology, and other regulatory documents provide other. We also have COBITs. After COVID, we also have Center for Information Security (CIS) and so forth like that, and we also have okay. These are the kind of framework we have. This provide definition of risk management and then risk assessment, risk management, and so forth. And then based on the OCTAV standard, we also have OCTAV standard definition. The relationship between risk assessment and risk management is shown in this work, in this figure. This is risk assessment was management life cycle from identification to assessing the risk, plan on how to mitigate it, or what are we going to do related to this risk. After that, we talk about implementation, implementing what the plan that we are planning on how to mitigate or transfer or avoidance or anyone. And then after the implementation, we keep on monitoring it, monitoring the implementation here. After that, the risk management, monitoring and controlling it based on what we come back controlling the risk, maybe by implementing policy and the rest, enforcing if it is policy, we enforce it and so forth like that. And then these are some custom method and best practices area as follow. These are best practices. We have method on a native national standard. We are talking of native national standard. We are talking of NDPA, like our Nigerian Data Protection Act, NDPA. It has been passed into law now. It is an act now, like NIC. Now it has been passed into act now, which is NDPA. Now we have to method based on the native national standard. We're talking of standard. This monitor our data, how organization manage our data, they use it, they use the way they use it, the way how they manage our information. Also, we also have a method based on international standard ISO 133 or ISO 13335-2. This is another was standard also. We also have method based on existing standard like OCTAVE, OCTAVE. We also have standard like that. And also we also have method based on individual protection for IT system of an organization like SIZ, SIZ-PP. So those are the kind of what standard we have. That kind of standard we have. And then purpose and applicability. What are the purpose and applicability? When we're talking about risk management comprises of implementation and maintenance of countermeasure which mitigate the impact of risk to acceptable level. When we have to risk our IT information, like IT infrastructure, information system, there are what? There are minimum acceptable security level to implement. There are minimum of percentage of risk that should be accepted. If not, you have to do something about it. So risk analysis provide management for information required to make decision regarding the information security. Risk analysis procedure recognize existing security controls. It calculates vulnerability and assesses the effect of threat on each vulnerable area. This is what we call our risk analysis. It will help us to what? To recognize the existing security control. Is it what? Is it secure enough? Is it enough? Like is it, oh, and then calculate the vulnerability. You also calculate the vulnerability. What will be the impact if they have to want to exploit this angle and assess the effect of threat on each vulnerability. What will be the effect? What will be the damages if they have to exploit this angle? So the decision to implement security measure is based on how important the data is, how valuable the data is, how confidential, how classified the data is. We determine the kind of security measure we are going to put in place. Then the expenses, because the expenses has to be what has to be there also. The expenses has to be there also. So the total of prevented risk must be considered where a single solution will mitigate multiple risks. Now, so when we have to implement this, we must make sure that a single solution will be able to mitigate this, be able to solve the problem, or anyhow we want to do it, or be able to solve this problem. Let's go to the next slide. And for risk assessments are persistent and are conducted throughout the system development life cycle. From planning to implementation, and it is continuous and is continuing into post-implementation support and substance. There are no specific requirements with respect to this work following. When we are talking of risk assessment, it's continual things from the identification to planning to implementation to continue what till we get to post implementation and all those things. So it is continuous things that we have to what keep on doing with the risk assessment. And then there are no specific requirements with respect to the following, which are the rule of convention, decision, or level of details have to what have to be there also. And the methodologies, tools, and techniques used to execute it have to be what? Implemented also. The format and content of the evaluation results and reporting must support what? The implementation also. All these things are applicable. This what? This was what? This all these things must be into consideration before what? In risk assessment. Now, enterprise exhibits flexibility in the implementation of risk assessment. Organizations have to be aware that risk assessment by themselves are not precise instruments of measure, and they and reflect the following drawback. If there is any flexibility in exhibiting risk assessment, there will be drawback in this aspect. Number one, shortcoming of some assessment methodologies, tools and techniques used. If the organization is flexible, they are not taking, they are not following proper standards. These are the what the implementation will be shortcoming. Some assessment methodologies, tools, and techniques may not be of standard. And then the quality, reliability, and subjectivity of the data was used. There may not be what quality in the what in this risk assessment if we don't follow the proper standard. And the understanding of the assessment result. Because since we are not using standard tools, we are not using all these standard data, now the assessment will give us wrong what we will get the result will be wrong. Because it's like when you want to what maybe you want to mix a chemical, you now go and buy a fake chemical, you will not be able to get the quality of the product you want at the end of the day. The results will you not be able to understand. The assessment of the results will be what fake because you don't follow proper standard. And then experience, skill and expertise of person or group conducting the assessment also have to work. Maybe the experience and the skill and the expertise of such people have to be uh, you know what uh, they will be also withdrawn back in that area also. And then important factors such as cost, timeline, and usability is in the application of risk assessment award and desire. All these things have to go to be desired. Cost, timeline, timeliness, and the usability is of the applications have to be what have to be decided. These are the goals so that we can achieve the common goal, so that the results you want to get have to be standard, so that the risk assessment, the risk you are taking will be of genuine. So you know what you are doing. So risk with respect to information what system. In the field of information technology, risk management is the process of understanding and responding to the element that may lead to failure in confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information system. Mind you, risk management is the process of understanding and responding to the elements that will lead to this failure, confidentiality, availability, integrity, and availability that we have discussed before. So it will help us to what to be able to what to. And then there are few possible threats to the information system. Vulnerability is a flaw or weaknesses. We have discussed this also. Vulnerability is a what? Is a flaw, weaknesses, loophole in system security procedures or in business processes or in network infrastructure and design, implementation, or internal control that could accidentally be triggered or purposely exploited, either accidentally or intentionally, but it will result in security breach or system policy violation. Anything either intentionally or unintentionally, it is being triggered, but it will what cause security breach or system violation, or shutdown of the operation, or breach in the operation, or stopping of the operation. That is what we call vulnerability. Anything that will affect the operation of the organization, business, either you intentionally or system, information system, or destruction of data, and so forth. So we call it vulnerability. But once this thing is either accidentally or intentionally triggered, it will cause loss of data, destruction of data, it will cause stoppage in operation, stop in operation, or business continuity, policy violation. That is what we call what? Vulnerability. Now let's talk about threat source and the description here. Number one, accidental disclosure. When we are talking of accidental disclosure, this is unauthorized or accidental release of personal or sensitive information. Maybe your information with your bank, it is being what accidentally. Maybe someone mistakenly upload it on social media instead of picking a particular file. Maybe you want to upload this picture, now go and upload your own customer information. It may this is this is threat source. And we also have natural disaster, which is earthquake, or earthquake, hurricane, tornadoes that may damage the system or applications. The major impact of such disaster is the availability of the system. Because once all these things happen, flood and so forth, it will make sure that the availability of the system is what is being breached. The system will not be available. We also have bandwidth usage, intentionally or accidentally use of bandwidth for communication other than intended purpose. Maybe they bought a data for you to be using for office work. Now you now go and use it to be watching Netflix. You now be using that kind of data to be watching Netflix. Now data now finish. You don't see data that will give you access to the internet now to do the organization work. That's an example I can give to you. Bandwidth usage. Instead of use the bandwidth which is being given, which is the organization that is supposed to be using to be doing the task, you're not using it for your own selfish interest or for your own self purposes or anything like that. Another thing, software modification. intentionally modifying, inserting or deleting operating system or application by authorized or unauthorized users. Maybe intentionally you delete or unintentionally you modify code, software code, delete or uninstall software. This will cause damages, and this compromise the CIA data, which is the what? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Once you uninstall a particular software or delete a software, it's not available. You modify it, you change the content, the software, the integrity, confidentiality, what you're supposed to do, you have done it, which means the confidentiality has been broken also. So Trojan horses, malicious code, viruses comes under this what category. There are software, Trojan horse, malicious code like malware, ransomware, and so on and so forth. Malware will encrypt all the data on your system. We do anything, it will destroy everything. We also have worms. Worms is very dangerous. We also have rootkit also used to creating backlog. Very, very dangerous. Now we have our destruction slash interference. Fluctuation or power destruction may occur because denial of service to authorize user or data modification. Now, actually, I'm teaching that if there's power outage, I will not be able to continue this class, right? So that's another one threat also. And we also have system configuration error, accidental or error possibly during initial installation or upgrade of a system software, like what happened to Microsoft CrowdStrike upgrade that caused outage of what? Microsoft or Windows operating system. Then, if you remember 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So that's another issue, like hardware communication, communication hardware or operational environment. So we also have communication link issues, telecommunication, internet service provider also can cause all this of threats, disclosure, or this threat also. So let's move to the next. Any questions so far? Now, basic of risk management. Risk management. Risk assessment is an important part of an enterprise risk management process. The assessment identify, prioritize, and estimates risk to the operation of the organization, assets, individual, other organization, and nation which use information system also. This assessment remind you, this assessment to identify, prioritize, and estimate risk to the operation of a business. Not only operation, to the staff of the organization, people, to the data, information, customer, clients. It will identify and prioritize and estimate the kind of risk to this kind of assets. Also, importance of risk management. The main reason for managing risk in an organization is to protect the mission and property of the organization. Is to protect the mission what? The goal of the business. If you are a business owner, you don't want the operation of your business to stop. What will you do? You have to look for anything that will stop it and mitigate them. Anything that will stop the operation of your business to mitigate them is your goal. That's for that. And then that's the important that's part of the importance of what? Risk management. Risk model define the importance term using risk assessment, which include risk factors to be assessed and relationship among these factors. And then threat source can be any of the following. It can be physical or cyber attack that are what hostile. It can also be government sponsor. It can be custom compare or your compared to your competitors in the market space. So it can be physical or cyber attack. We also have human error causing omission or commission, misconfiguration, unintentionally, accidentally doing things you're supposed to do. Human error. We also have infrastructure breakdown of enterprise, manage resources like hardware, software, and so on. Maybe the IT infrastructure, the network, and the rest, router, switch, server, and the rest can damage, can also cause uh, 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 can also cause threats also, and nature and man-made disaster, accident, and out of control event. If you notice, is it not last year when is it Cameroon that opened their dam that leads to flood in Borno State? When Cameroon not an error or charge. They open their dam because their dam gets through. Now, once it is open, it leads to a flood that destroy many properties in Borno State. If is it not a 3 months or 4 months ago? Yes, in this country, that it's even though said it gets to zoo that crocodile started escaping in the zoo, snake escaping in the zoo. So these are kind of example like natural or man-made disaster. This is man-made disaster due to negligence of the federal government. So that's what that. A threat event is a situation caused by the threat such that cause untoward consequence. Threat events for cyber attack are usually indicated by tactics, technique, and procedure. We call it TTP. The tactics, techniques, and procedure used to what? Used by combatants, by hackers, threat actors. All these people that carry out these attacks, this cyber attack, we call them threat actors. Now then, very wicked set of people. They don't care. You know your business shut down. This that. Are less concerned. So that's for that. Any questions so far? Hmm? So let's move on. And then we also have predisposing condition and vulnerability. Vulnerability is an intrinsic flaw in an information system, security procedure, control, or implementation, which can be exploited by threat source. Not only system also. In human being are vulnerable also. They have their own vulnerability also. That's why we always recommend security work training, security awareness training. It's when you know how things are, when you are aware of this kind of security training, that when you know how they do it, that's when you will know that this thing is very dangerous. If I fail with this, it will cost us a lot of things. It's when you are aware of this kind of thing, that's when you will know that I don't supposed to do that, I don't supposed to do. These are the tactics, these are the techniques, these are the procedure of how what threat actors carry their activities. Also, that's for vulnerability. And vulnerability in the information system can be recognized with security controls. Can be also recognized with security control, which are not applied, or applied and have some weaknesses. Even though after controlling it, there see weaknesses. That is what we call what vulnerability in information system. Now, let's talk about risk assessment components. Risk assessment component. Number one, we have frame risk. When we are talking of frame risk, this by establishing the context of risk management activities by describing the environment in which risk-based decisions are made. When we are talking of establishing the context of risk management, why do you want to what? Do this risk management? Why? What are we even performing risk management on? What are the assets are we performing it on? What are we doing risk assessment on? Is it data, asset, network, infrastructure, organization information, the people, and so on and so forth? Number two, assess risk. Risk assessment address how companies evaluate risk within the context of the organization risk frame. Assessing that risk, addressing that risk, checking what are the risks that is leveraged on the organization, information, assets, and data, and so forth. We also have response to risk. This component of risk management address how organization responds to risk after the risk is determined, depending on the result of risk assessment. What will you do after you know that these are the risk? What will you do? How will you respond to it? This is another one part. We also have monitor risk. The component of risk management addresses the way in which risks are monitored over the period of time. After you have implemented, do everything you did when you respond to it. Now monitoring it, that it's the purpose why it fulfill the purpose why it is being implemented. Monitoring it, post monitoring it, or perform another risk assessment. We also have another thing called hard hoc, ad hoc, HOC, ad hoc risk assessment, which is a vulnerability assessment. A particular threat come on board, you now pick that particular threat and what do vulnerability assessment or risk assessment on that particular threat to check maybe the organization is vulnerable to that kind of what threat. Are you with me? So let's move on. Now, risk assessment process. This risk assessment process from the frame, from the frame, you move to assessment. There's communication. After you are done with your assessment, to monitor, from monitor to response. After your assessment, you will respond to it. What I mean is the information and communication flow. So from here, you move to this angle. You respond to the risk that are there, and you start monitoring it. From here, monitoring and responding. From assessment to response to assess again. This is what life cycle. This is how it works. If you see here, none of them from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. Also. It's based on the assessments you do to determine how you are going to respond and how you are going to be monitoring it. Now, multi-tie risk management. A three-tie approach is followed to integrate risk management process throughout the organization. Number one, the organizational level. What's the organizational level? And number two, mission of business process level. And number four is information system level. I'm talking of organization level. Which level is the organization? What is the plan of the work organization? And number two, the mission of business process. What are their business? What is the goal of this organization? What is their business process? You also determine this kind of what risk management. And then information system. What are the information system that how what was the level? What's the what what we say uh confidentiality? How this the huh? I'm sure this is how classified the information system level is, how classified it is. So we determine. So these are the three words. Three type approach is followed to integrate what risk management process within the organization. Now let's talk about the three type one after the other. One, Taiwan, which is what tackle risk from an organization viewpoint. In the by the organization viewpoint, how the organization tackle this what tackle this risk. Number two, how they tackle risk from business process perspective and get information from the risk context, risk decision, and risk activities at time. The way number one thing is how did the organization look at the risk, and then how did they will bring this into the business process, and how they are going to the decision they will make, and how the risk activity and how to mitigate it, and everything related to the risk. And number three, tackle risk from an information system perspective and is guided by the what risk frame and risk decision activities from Taiwan and Type 2. The kind of what the way from the information system perspective, the way in the viewpoint of the information system, we determine how we are going to tackle it. So these are the what these are the this thing from Taiwan, which is the traceability and transparency of risk-based decision, organization-wide risk awareness also, strategy of risk, tactics or tactical risk, information system, business process, and organizations. Also, every information that has been gathered here help to solve the stage two. Every information gathered based on the information gathered here will help to solve the what information system risk also. And inter and intra-side communication, feedback loop of continuous betterment. Now, after they get all this three information, that's when you now what draft out their tactical risk, how they are going to what, implement this, what are the measures, the policy they have to create to make sure that this risk is being mitigated. Now, let's talk about risk assessment concepts. Risk is a measure of the rate to which an entity is threatened by a potential event. and is usually a function of the following. Risk is measure of a range to which an entity is threatened by a potential event, and it is usually a function either of these two following. Number one, serious impact that will arise if the event occurs. Number two, the likelihood of its occurrence. Is two things that happen in risk when you are calculating risk. Risk is what is the likelihood that this thing will occur, and what are the damages it will cause if this kind of what, if this kind of threats, if this kind of if this kind of things threat occurs to the work to the organization or to the information system. I've said this in class. It is probability versus likelihood of happening. That's how it's being was calculated. And then assessment process include the following step. One, in an explicit risk model, define key terms as an accessible risk factor and relationship among the factors. And number two, in an assessment approach, specify the extent of value the risk factor can take during the assessment. What are the extent value the risk factors can take during the assessment? And number three, in an analysis approach, specify the way value of those factors are functionally combined to evaluate what the risk. You have to what? Specify the way all those factors can functionally combine to evaluate so that you'll be able to evaluate this kind of risk. Now, let's talk about the process of risk management. The process of what risk management. The process of which vulnerability and threats are recognized probably harm is identified to decide on implementation of security control is called what? Risk analysis. The process by which vulnerability and threats are recognized and probably harm is identified. The kind of harm damages that will occur to that information system. That harm, that damages is what identified to decide on implementation of security control. After we have identified it, we know this vulnerability, we know this threat, and the harm is also identified. When this vulnerability is being exploited, the kind of harm it will cause to the information system is also identified that will lead to deciding on the kind of security implementation, security control implementation is called risk analysis. We know that the process of vulnerability and threats are recognized is being what identified. Vulnerability is flaw. Threat is damages that it will cause. It's yet to happen. It's a threat to you. Not that it has happened. The vulnerability is the flaw. While the threat is unwanted circumstance that can damage the organization for infrastructure if it is being what if the vulnerability is what exploited, which they are identified, which is being recognized, and probably harm the kind of harm that it will cause, which is being identified, that will lead to the decision of the kind of security control that we are going to implement. That is what we call this as analysis. Now, the relationship between threats, vulnerabilities, countermeasure, asset, and impact is shown in this diagram. Number one, this is the threat that is leveraged on vulnerability here. Now, the vulnerability, what are the countermeasures? What can we implement that will counter this kind of vulnerability and threat on this particular asset? Now, we now come back to the impact. If this vulnerability were exploited, what is the impact? Now, in the impact, it can be modification of that information system or data. It can be disclosure that can destroy the reputation and cause financial loss on the organization. It can be destruction of that data or the information system itself. It can also be denial of service, which is the availability of the CIA drive. So this is how the process of risk management. This is the diagram. This is how it is being figured out. This will lead to what you are going to do to countermeasure and the impact vulnerability, and threat. Now, the different analysis approach are as stated. Different analysis approach are as stated. One, you have threat base, beginning with recognition of threat source and event. When we are talking of threat base, this is where what we recognize where this threat is coming from, and event which is attack what uh, threat actor. Where is it coming from? Who is this person? Where is this threat from? Why is it occurring? And number two, impact based slash asset based. This way is beginning with recognition of high value assets and high impact. What are this way we are going to classify all this kind of assets and data. Now, this asset that is being of value and the one that has high impact, if they exploit them, is another one, and we are going to look at it too. And number three, which is vulnerability based, beginning with your predisposing condition or flaws in information system or environment of the organization. Now we can have perimeter vulnerability. Maybe we don't have security personnel at the entrance of the building. And we know that we have something confidential inside the building. Anybody can walk in and walk out. Maybe in the server room, there's no lock. Anybody can just enter and go out. And we don't know. So those are the things we also look at. It's also a vulnerability on the perimeter. There's no fence, there's no barbed wire on the fence. All those things have to be implemented. CCTV security cameras have to also to be implemented. Smart card security implementation have to be at the entrance door of the server room and so forth. All those things have to be implemented. Now let's talk about the process of risk management, which is fundamental strategies for managing risk. These are these are the fundamental strategies. We have mitigation, avoidance, acceptance, and transparency. When we're talking of mitigation, things that will implement IDS, firewall, and so forth that will neutralize that kind of risk, that will neutralize that threat. That is mitigation, mitigating it, pata dying. Avoidance, when we're talking of avoidance, avoidance can lead to not even like stopping that kind of business operation, that kind of service. Maybe an organization is providing up to 10, 20 services. Now, we now say that this particular angle, that the kind of risk is very high and should cause a lot of damages. Now, if we avoid this, it will not cause harm to the organization. It can lead to what risk avoidance. You can just avoid that kind of business operations and continue with other services that do not give us higher loss when there's a threat or when there's an attack. Also have acceptance. When you accept a risk is when a particular damages is lower than the what, like the damages it will cause. The impact, let me say, the impact it will cause is lower than the what the is very low to the organization. The financial cost it will cost the organization. This can lead to acceptance of of that kind of risk. When the damages it will cause is not much, you can accept it. And then risk transference. When we're talking of transference, we are talking about what? Shifting the blame on someone if the exploitation can be placed. Are you with me? So when you know that if this thing is going to cause you a lot of damages, you now shift it to other. The kind of people we shift the damages to are insurance company. They are the one you can transfer it to them. If the problem is to come, now you go collect this thing, so they go to pay for insurance. Are you with me? Based on under the condition that they implement it. If anything now happens that is beyond the organization, the insurance people will pay more board and come and pay for the debt or damages that it has cost. Hope you understand this angle very well. Now, communication of risk and risk management strategies. After the step involving understanding of risk and its management must be communicated to the organization management. Any risk that is what that we see at the end of the day have to be communicated with the board member, organization management, with the CEO, the executive, and the rest, the investors. It has to be represented in terms of probability, like likelihood, also, and impact, rather than engaging word like fear, doubt, and uncertainty. So finding and suggesting are accepted by top executives only when they understand what's in them. This is when you will bring out a chart. This is the probability of how this will happen. It's not that you now insert fear. That's all. There's nothing you can do. Uncertainty that we are not even sure. You have to be what your risk assessment have to give you. You have to be sure the solution to that kind of challenge. So it's when they now understand that they now okay, let's go with this suggestion that we bring on us for also mitigate or transfer or accept or what was the last one? We have mentioned transfer, avoidance, transfer, transfer mitigation, avoidance. Oh, sorry. This is summary. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the end of this.